Hey there, welcome back to Season 1, Episode 8 of Fascinating Founders. I'm your host, Nicole Holland, and I'm thrilled to be your guide as we dive in and uncover the stories that came before the success of some of the world's most fascinating founders. Hailing from a multitude of industries and socioeconomic starts, you're going to learn what's made these fascinating men and women realize their dreams from an inspired idea to millions in revenue, disrupting, innovating, and impacting humanity for the better. You never know what's going to come up in our casual conversations, so get your notebooks ready, cozy up with a great cup of joe, and join us as I dive in to learn how these inspiring individuals have figured out how to thrive in a time where most people give up on their dreams. My guest today is Jason Swenk. He's the agency advisor and mentor that guides marketing agencies through a proven framework for growing their agency faster. Jason has literally written the book for growing an agency from nothing to an 8-figure agency. He's one of the most sought-out advisors to agencies in the world by showing them an 8-step framework that worked for growing his agency, working with brands like AT&T, Hitachi, Lotus Cars, and eventually led to selling his agency. Jason currently hosts 2 shows, the Smart Agency Masterclass podcast, which is the #1 digital marketing agency owner podcast for sharing the strategies and stories from real agency owners of what is working today in the agency world and how they got to where they are now. Plus, SwenkToday is a Tuesday and Thursday show that documents how you can grow your digital agency and business, where Jason shares the latest growth strategies, mindset, and answers the most burning questions that digital agency owners and entrepreneurs have. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. How about we start out with you just giving our listeners a quick overview of your company and what you do?
Yeah, so my company is a media agency for agencies where we basically put out content I wish I had when I was running my agency to allow them to create the freedom in order to pick and choose and do the things that they really love doing in their agency.
Awesome. And so this company that you're running now evolved after having an agency that you no longer have. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So I had an agency for 12 years. We built it up, grew it, and then people wanted to buy it. So we sold it. And we're like, okay. And then afterwards, I was like, well, let's do an iPhone app. And hated that. And just lucky enough, I found this.
Lucky indeed. I don't think it was luck though at all. You're brilliant and I love what you're putting out there. So when you first started your agency, I'd love to talk a little bit about how that evolved, but I'm curious, even before that, what was your first entrepreneurial venture?
So that goes back to probably when I was about 11 years old, where I had a lawn mowing service. My tagline back then was, I beat everybody by a yard. And I would go around to the neighborhood and put flyers up at the mailbox and be like, I'll mow your yard for like $5 or something like that.
Wow, that's amazing. And so as a child, then you did that. Did you ever get a quote real job after?
Oh, I had lots of real jobs. I got fired from every single one. I worked at Wendy's for a day. The most serious job I had out of school was Arthur Anderson. And I worked as a computer programmer, and that didn't work out either.
You were with Arthur Anderson for a while, though, weren't you?
A whole 6 months.
Nice. And that was the longest stint, eh?
That was the longest I've held the job, yes.
So at what point did you just realize, hey, this job thing is not for me, and I am going to build some stuff?
It was really at Arthur Anderson. And I kind of did it by accident. One of my friends looked like Justin Timberlake from NSYNC. So I created a fake band, fake website called In Shit. And it got popular in the late 90s. And then people started asking me to design websites. And I was like, all these people are coming to me to design websites. I could do this from my apartment. And I can do this anywhere I want. And I can work as much or as little as I want. And I was like, screw the 9 to 5. And started doing that.
Awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about that, of how that evolved, because you started just making these sites as a young person and you sold your company eventually for a very nice chunk of change, if I'm not mistaken, and have worked with numerous huge brands along the way. So can you tell us a little bit about how you sort of took that initial realization of, oh, wow, I can make some money and I am making money, to developing into an agency And then beyond that, recognition that it's time to go out of the agency.
Yeah, so I started in 99. So I had full visions of starting a business, growing it up big and selling it, because everybody back then, it was around the dot-com era. Even when I graduated from college and I worked for Arthur Andersen, we were getting signing bonuses as computer programmers. So you put tech on anything, it always accelerated the valuation, and everybody wanted to, get a piece of this dot-com era. And so then, when I started my own, I was being reactionary to the market. I was being reactionary to everything that was coming to us because it was all based on referrals and word of mouth. And then, a couple of years went by, and I kind of hit a plateau. We hit a bunch of plateaus that we just kind of broke through. But let's say this plateau, I think it was around the million mark. I was like, why can't we just really break through to the multi-million-dollar mark? And what I realized was, I didn't have the right systems in place, or I didn't have the right foundation, because I was an accidental agency owner, an accidental entrepreneur. And I knew how to do something cool, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do going forward. I didn't know who I wanted to be my perfect client. And so I had to get some clarity of, where did I want to go? What was that direction? And I didn't even know who to hire, right? And so I would hire anybody that would work for me. And a lot of times I would get lucky. A lot of times I wouldn't. And what I realized was, I wasn't hiring people based on my core values, which actually in turn turned out to be the company core values. And so as I started getting clarity for that, and then I started getting clarity of going, all right, this is the type of agency we want to become. This is the type of clients we want to work with and we want to help. And then understanding, why do we want to do that? And then only from there could I help my team make decisions without me, because a lot of times entrepreneurs get in this place where we're making all these decisions and everybody's always coming to us to make the decision. Well, that gets very draining. I always kind of reference it as, let's say we're on a boat from New York to London, and after about 10 hours you get tired. You're like, hey, I'm going to go in my cabin and go sleep. Wake me up if the boat changes direction or changes course. And so every 5 minutes, everybody's waking you up to go up to the wheelhouse and to do the little 2-degree course correction. And then you go back down, and it happens every 2 minutes. Well, if you just told them you were going to London, they could make a decision. And if they didn't want to go to London, get the hell off the boat. And so that was kind of the first system. And that was the first realization that we had in order to allow us to really grow.
Amazing. And at that point, how many employees did you have on the team?
Around 10.
10. And once you were able to start implementing and sort of giving over that ownership of the tasks that you didn't necessarily need to manage, what was the outcome of that?
Well, we started growing almost double for a couple years, and really growing a lot faster. And I didn't have to do everything, right? Literally, I got to a point where I almost wanted to shut the agency down at that point. And I almost took a job with NASCAR, and they asked me 2 questions. They were like, what do you want to do every day, and what don't you never want to do? And those 2 questions really changed everything for me, because then I was like, all right, let me get a piece of paper out. And I basically drew a circle on this piece of paper, and probably the circle is about the size of your fist. So if you guys want to do this exercise, go for it. So put your fist on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, draw a circle around it. Everything outside that circle is all the stuff that you hate doing or that you never want to do again. And then so as you start doing that through a process of elimination, then you start writing inside the circle of all the stuff you love doing, that only you are really good at, and that you could see yourself doing all the time. And so then what you can start doing is you're like, oh, these are the type of people I need to hire in order to do this. Like project management. I don't need to be doing project management. I suck at attention to detail. Someone else needs to do it. I don't want to do finance. Hate numbers, hate spreadsheets. Great. Hire this person. And so then you can start, rather than start fixing your weaknesses, you can hire for your weaknesses and keep building on your strengths.
I love that. I'm sitting here taking so many notes. Cool. So when you had that realization, I guess that also helped you realize that you did not want to go take a job for NASCAR?
Yep. Yeah, I turned them down. I was like, I started thinking, I was like, well, I can do this within my own agency.
Yeah. Cool. And so then kind of next steps? And this was around when? Because so we're 2019 now, the end of 2019 as we're recording this, and you sold the agency a number of years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, I sold it in 2012.
2012. So can you kind of take us to the point of which you recognized, okay, it's time to sell? Because I think you've had that opportunity multiple times before, if I'm not mistaken. So when you really knew, okay, I'm ready to sell and here's why, I'd love to know a little bit about that. And then we can talk about how you pivoted into what you're doing today.
Yeah. So, there's over the years, especially as you grow rapidly, you're going to always have people that want to buy you. Now, some people will come with pretty crappy offers, and I can't, I can't shame them for asking. Like, there's some people that will sell for nothing. So might as well ask. And then we had a couple real offers. And I've even seen some of my friends, even mastermind members in our mastermind, actually almost go out of business when they actually start going down this path, because someone will say, I'll pay you X. And then you get so excited about the money you're about to get that you take your foot off the gas. And then if the deal falls through, then you're kind of screwed and you're kind of left hanging. And a lot of people go out of business. So I remember some of my friends going through this, and they were always like, if anybody ever wants to buy you, never take your foot off the gas. And I've always kept that in the back of my head. So, 12 years into running the agency, we had a strategic partner that we kept using back and forth. They were using us, we were using them. And then they just said, hey, we love what you're doing around X, Y, and Z. We're looking to acquire an agency like yours. We want to buy you. And so we're like, all right, well, let's talk. Let's talk about how you value us, what it's going to look like. And they put a big offer in front of us, and we couldn't refuse it.
Wonderful. Congratulations on that, of course. And when you made that, when you took the offer, when you exited, I'm assuming you exited, or did you stay on for a while?
I stayed on. So I had to stay on with the company for another 2 years, or in the event that they sold again. And I was just lucky enough that they sold 9 months later, so I could get out because I hated it.
That's awesome for all of you, I guess. Okay, cool. So the company's gone, or the agency's gone. Now what? How did you fill in that gap? Or did you take time off? Did you just know what the next step was? How did you determine where you wanted to go from there?
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do, honestly. I'm a creator. I have to build stuff. I have to, and when I sold the agency, I was depressed a couple weeks later. I was real excited as it was going through, and then as a week went by, but then I was like, my God, I'm miserable. And people were like, why are you miserable? And I was like, well, I really figured it out now. It was because I didn't have that significance anymore. I wasn't working with LegalZoom or Hitachi or AT&T or Aflac anymore. My team didn't need me. I didn't have a team. It was just me. And so I was like, I got to do something. And so I thought at the time I would build an iPhone app that takes pictures of everything you eat and gives you a visualization. And we put a bunch of money, a bunch of time into it, but I didn't like doing it. I didn't have passion behind it. And I was just doing it, because I was like, all right, well, we had a good exit on this, but it wasn't $1 billion exit. And Instagram just got sold for $1 billion. I was like, well, let's use that as a goal. And it was stupid. Like I was doing it as like a stupid game, as a number, which is irrelevant. And I always tell people, don't make decisions based on money. And I was still making decisions based on money. And so I closed it down, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but some of my old competitors in the agency space started reaching out, and I started helping them out. They were like, well, how'd you sell? How'd you get these big clients? How'd you manage this big team? How'd you, do everything? And I started helping them out for free, and I got a lot of significance back. And when I did that, I was like, oh my God, like I would do this for free, because I was doing it for free. And my wife at the time was like, well, why don't you do that? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, why don't you work with who you used to be? I was like, okay. And then I started a podcast. I started putting information together and showing people a framework. I started building a community around so I could connect people. And I started focusing on, why would I do something like this? And I was like, my whole why around it is I wanted to create a resource I wish I had. And that's been the North Star of everything that we do for the past 6 years. And the business has grown substantially. And it's the coolest thing I've ever done.
This is amazing. I wish we could talk all day about this. However, we do need to start wrapping up. I can't believe how fast the time flew. Okay, Jason, so let us know a little bit more about what you're doing, how you're helping people, in case anybody in the audience is like, yes, you are the person I've been searching for. So let us know who you're serving, how you're serving in a little bit more of a meaningful way, or not meaningful, it was very meaningful, the whole thing, but in a more direct way. And also your best advice for business owners who want to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah. So, I mean, the people I serve are the agency owners that want to grow faster, but they're really kind of at a point where they've plateaued, or they just really want to speed it up. And they want to create the freedom in their agency, in their business, in order to pick and choose the things that they love doing, and have the freedom to say no to the wrong client, have the freedom to say no to the things that just don't fulfill them anymore. And so I show them a framework that worked for us. So those are the perfect, and you have to be cool. You have to be fun. You can't be this workaholic, because we got to enjoy life. Like I realized in building that business, I always treated the end destination as the win rather than the whole experience building up to it. And so those are the types of people I like to work with. And what was the second question?
Well, he's kind of sort of touched on it, but maybe there's something more. What would be your best advice?
Best advice
for a business owner wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I guess I did touch on it. So enjoy the journey. Don't just obsess over the end destination, because when it comes, then you'll be depressed. I mean, treat it like a mountain. Okay. In order to climb a mountain, you have to have a goal. So you're not just walking around the desert. So let's say, all right, I'm gonna climb this mountain. Well, you have to come up with a strategy to climb that mountain. Enjoy it. Like stop. Like I had this, I do this event twice a year. It's called the Digital Agency Experience. And at the end of day one, we walk up and hike up the mountain behind my house. And it's, 800 feet up. It's pretty vertical. And a lot of people just kind of run up as fast as they can. But I'm also, and I kind of do that. And I've done that in the past. But there was one member that was struggling a little bit, and I wanted to be with him and help him get up there, because it was just such a cool sunset up there. But by waiting for him and helping him out, I was able to see things and enjoy things I didn't think I would if I ran up the mountain. Meaning the whole way is like, enjoy the whole journey up. Just don't focus on getting to the top and that's it. And then go, all right, what's next? But enjoy the whole journey. And then once you do make it up to the top, look for the next mountain, and the next mountain, and the next mountain.
Brilliant. So how can people connect with you further?
The best way is to go to my website, jasonswenk.com. I'm not related to Hillary, so it's spelled with an E. So SWENK, so jasonswenk.com.
Thanks so much to Jason for being my guest on today's show and for sharing his founder's journey with us. We'll have links for you to connect directly with him, resources discussed, plus the full transcript of today's episode and more at fascinatingfounders.com. Remember, successful people surround themselves with successful people. And until next time, this is Nicole Holland signing off.